Hi, I'm Megan Gill, and I am here to paint an American flag today. So I want to tell you my secret to painting flags. You don't ever paint them flat. You always paint them with blowing in the wind. And there's a reason for that. So what I want to do today is I want to show you how I draw or paint an American flag and how you can also draw an American flag and not worry about all those little details. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen with you and I want you to see some thoughts that I have about actually stuff, okay? So this is one of the examples that I have for the American flag. And notice that it is on Shutterstock. You know, you can find flags anywhere. But what the thing is that it is not flat. And I want you to notice, can you count 50 stars? Can you even count 13 stripes? The answer to that is yes. You can see all the stripes, but they are not straight and they are broken. And some of them go in between each other and meet at an angle and things. So the point of this story is that when you're drawing something like this, you're going to think of the shapes, not the actual paint, the flag. You got to draw what you see, not what you know. All right, so I have got up here on the screen, I have the actual flag. I have my paper, pencil, have my koi watercolors over here to the side. I have some water right up here. Today, I'm actually using Canson watercolor block. It's a 6x9, and I just use that size because it's basically a 9x12 cut in half and works well, but it's 140 pound, and that's really important. And so what it is a block. So this right here is actually gummed, so I don't have to tape this off so much. But okay, so let's start with drawing our actual shapes of the flag. So first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to draw my pole. Everyone's like, well, the pole has got to be straight. Does it? I know some of y'all are probably dying. Okay, so I have my ball and I have my pole. And I know you can hardly see that because I'm really trying to be nice and light here. Okay, so I know that basically if you look at that example, you're going to see basically a few shapes, right? So the first shape that I see is the blue flag portion. So I'm going to focus on piecing this together. So one of the things is I am paying attention to what I see on the screen, and it's kind of got a angle here. It's got an angle here, and it actually has a little angle right here. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come off from this and I'm going to follow, basically there's a red stripe that goes right down the center here. So I'm going to follow that, and it's not straight. It kind of goes at an angle. All right, so there's that. And then I'm going to come in and I'm going to go to the top here and I'm going to go in, and it has an angle that kind of goes like that. So it's kind of, what's the word? Angled a little bit. Then it has this section here that actually bows out a little bit. And then this kind of is jagged and kind of wavy a little bit. So I'm going to do that. So this is the top portion of the flag. And before I go on, I'm going to kind of come in and well, no, I'm not. I was about to say I was going to go in and draw my other shapes, but I'm not. So now I'm going to come down to the bottom where I think it is. Now, we know that the flag is basically the same distance, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just like that. Now, the question is would that always be true? No. It wouldn't. It would not always be true depending on what angle you were looking at it. So right now I'm actually coming in and I'm just doing it because really if you look at that, we do have that kind of happening here. And I am paying attention to this part right here, and it goes up at an angle, and then technically this, I see a triangle right here. I'm going to go ahead and draw that triangle. Then it steps down a little bit and it has another little angle that goes up and comes back down, and it kind of curves around. And then I'm going to come in and this goes downhill a little bit, and it goes farther than in this down here, this bowing of the, what do you call that? Flag. All right, so here we are. We've got, that is, doesn't look like a flag, does it? So one of the things about this is, and that looks really odd to you all, doesn't it? So, all right, so basically you are now seeing what I see. It's nice, isn't it? Okay, so now I'm gonna focus on my red stripes and my, well, these weird lines that are actually very important. So there's actually this gray space that I see that goes up to this line here. And it goes across. So there's that vertical line. Basically, all these vertical lines are kind of indicating to me where wrinkles are happening, okay? So from here, I know, well, I'm watching, I'm looking at this, and I'm going, all right, so this is a red stripe, and then this is a white. So I'm going to just WR, okay? So I literally put it in there a little bit. How's that? Is that better? Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and I'm going to go in to, so there's that, but notice how this one is white right here, and that is going to be red. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to go from here to here. That's going to be my red. And the red does this weird little, it follows this line a little bit. So there's a white line here, and then this red line that's basically coming up right there. And I'm going to go ahead and put red and white there so I don't get confused. And that means that this little area here, there's some white and there's some red right there, okay? Now I'm going to come in and I'm going to, this one here, this line, this red, focusing on the red, because red is going to be, I'm going to say my positive space, mainly because I'm going to have to paint that, right? So automatically, by doing that, I make my white. So this is white. This is, that is white. This is red. Notice that it does get complicated. And then this is my red. So, all right, so this red right here, and it basically goes into this right here. So there's my R, and then here's my white right in here. And it comes up. All right, and then I have this right here, right? And it goes into this red. Now, am I doing this right? That's what you love, right? Like you love to see a teacher mess up. So let's see here. We've got a white up here. We have an R. We have a white. We have an R, which probably should be up higher, okay? So there's that R. This is white, and this is R. Okay, so I did have it right. All right, so this red one is the most important one here, and I'm going to come in and draw it kind of like I see it, which is kind of all over the place. That white actually gets bigger right in here. And then there's this red right here that actually gets skinnier. Okay, notice it gets a little confusing. You have to look at what you actually do. It's awfully blurry, isn't it? Okay, so here we go. Now I'm going to come down here, and this is my white. So I'm going to go white here, and I'm going to go, this white kind of goes along these weird edges and kind of comes down, gets bigger, right? And then comes back down. So this is white, okay? Then there's this red one right here. So this red one goes up. This red one basically starts a little different, goes up, right? It comes up, goes around. So do you see it's not straight? That's the key here. And then this one right here actually kind of goes and then curves back out. All right, and you get a little confused, don't you? Right, there's the R, here's a white. This, we're going to be on the top of this red, so This is a red. All right, and this bottom one is a red, and it is pretty straight. So there's white and there's white. Okay, so this one was pretty on dead, like right. It's here in the middle here that it gets weird. This red one right here actually looks like it's lower than everybody else. And that's what's going to be weird when you go to paint it. So I'm going to go ahead and put this red one in here. And notice it is really weird. You have to treat this as 3 different paintings almost. Because this is your R. And look at how big that white got. So there's an R. Here's my white, and here's a red. This red down here, look at how weird shaped it is. It automatically does this shape for you. All right, now I'm afraid that this is going to go over. This was not as simple as I wanted it to be. You love that, right? Maybe I'll put this into 2. All right. Okay, so now we check our work here. So we have white, red. Okay, wait a minute. We have red, which is a very little red, right? And then we have a white, and then we have a red, and then we have a white, and then we have a red, and then we have a white, and then we have this right here gets weird. Where did this red go, right? And it goes down, okay? And it almost goes into nothing. White, red, white, red, white, red. All right. I wish there was an easier way to tell you how to do this, but every time I do a flag, I have to do my R's and my W's, or I get confused. Now, let's look at, back to the shadows. So there is a big shadow right in, so here. Now, what you could do is, which y'all don't normally see me do this, is I can come in and shade a little bit where I see that shadow to just give me some kind of indication. And now this one goes halfway. And then I've got this one, which goes basically that way, okay? And you just lightly put it up there. All right, now, again, we have our pole. And there. Now I'm going to bring this up close. All right, so what I'm going to do next is I'm going to take my kneaded eraser, clean up a few things. Probably going to work on where my whites are, and might get rid of some of my hints, my W's, because my whites need to be pretty clean, right? Because the white, when you're doing this, is actually part of the paper, so you can't go too crazy. Okay, so now we've got this started. We are going to take my number 2 Simply Simmons brush and my Koi. Now my Koi watercolors does not have, I would say, American red. It's kind of got, but you're going to see how I make a whole lot of different reds. So I'm going to start with this orangey red. I mean, it really looks orangey to you. Pause. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're taking our red, which looks orange to you guys, and we are going to first start with some red just to get it in here. And I want you to do it pretty fast. I want you to pay attention to where you are, but this is going to help map it out rather quickly so we can at least kind of tell where we're going, because it gets kind of confusing, as you can tell. But look at that. Now that you have it going, now this one gets really skinny. Sometimes it's even easier to paint it than it is to draw it, because your paintbrush, you can control the paint a little bit better, like thick, thin, thick, thin. Okay, so we've got this red, this red, this red. All right, perfect. Now on this side, we've got this red right here that goes around, and here. Okay, now we're going to take, notice it is not right on, it is different. I'm going to do the same thing to that one, And then I have this red that's a triangle, and then there's this red. Okay, there we go with our nice reds. Now we're going to use the pole. So we need a gray for the pole. Let's see what we've got here. I'm just going to come in and do, this is a brown gray. The koi doesn't really have a gray, so to say. Like, it's got all kinds of different colors to it. It does have black, so I'm putting black in this. But notice it was nice and wet, and that's what's giving me that look. Notice that I did not put anything down for my beautiful, what do you call it, stars and stuff. I could have done masking for that, but I didn't. Okay, so again, koi's got some really different colors. So which color is more American blue? Probably that one. But that doesn't mean that we can use multiple blues, right? We probably will by the end of this. Okay, so I'm going to go to, I think this is 147. And now I'm going to just come in, and you're like, how do I get those whites back? You probably won't. Now, remember that it has a highlight right in here. So this whole area is nice and dark. So that means that this area right in here, I need to take away and add it somewhere else. So I'm taking it away, and I'm leaving it in that area right there. I'm not going to paint that yet. You're like, that's weird. It is. Now, let's look at, back to the reds. We're going to start making things darker. So where we have our sketch lines, we're going to start making it darker. So I'm going to come to a different red. Okay, which I'm coming to 117 maybe. And I'm going to start putting a little bit more red in here. Now, I'm starting to paint a little bit faster on purpose, and I'm not getting as much water on my brush. One, I like this bold. I think that the American flag should be really red and really powerful. And notice I did start light at first. And notice I'm not covering up everything that I did. That's the key to some watercolors, right? Is that you actually get to control the lights and darks by how much water you put in it. And that's what I'm doing here. So I'm going to say that one's really dark. And this whole side is darker than, yeah. All right, that's nice. Now I'm going to come over here to this. Now this side has a dark streak right in here. Okay. And it doesn't go all the way, but you're already starting to see how it's starting to look like it moves, all by having, I'm going to call it splotchy reds, right? So the key here is to actually come in and really focus on where's those darks in those reds and just put a dot. So these are actually folding over, so I'm going to put little dots right there. Okay. Now, of course, you'd probably want to notice I still can see some of my writing. That's all right, though. So you might want to clean that up before you get started. Okay, so I'm going to bring me some more blue over here, and I'm going to worry about this whole half of this right here is nice. It's darker right there, and it's darker right here. So I'm just putting these chunks of color in those areas and letting it sit and dry. And you're starting to already see how it's moving the flag for me. So what do we do about all of the whites? Well, that's the key here. I'm going to go in and I'm going to get me that light black. And you can't, so over here, I have a brown black kind of thing happen. But notice how watery it is. It's barely got any color. It's mostly water. All right. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in where I have my white and see it's going to bleed. So you've got to be careful here that it doesn't bleed. Notice I got real quiet. I get real quiet when I'm trying to be gentle. And notice, so I am using my thin brush here. There's this grayness that goes right along here. So what I'm doing is I'm being in the gray, in the white, and I'm putting these lines just directly in these areas. And it is bleeding on me. But that's what I get for going too fast and having too wet of a color. And not having my handy dandy, what do you call that thing? Notice, hair dryer. So I'm gonna, this has got a gray blue, probably a Payne's gray. It's 231, I think. And so I've got that, and I still need this part right here darker. So I just put that right in there, and I'm gonna put that right in here. And notice it is doing its job for me. Now, I still have some of this dark color right here, and I want a little bit more of it in this area right here. So there's a nice fold happening right here. And so I am literally trying to make that a little bit lighter or darker. So that's pretty dark. So what I'm going to actually do is I wiped off my brush, and I'm wiping off my brush, and I do this a lot. I don't think people realize how often I am using my paper towel. I'm finding that when I am teaching class that people don't use their paper towel near as much as I do. Your paper towel is your friend. Okay, now this has some wrinkles right up here. So guess what? I'm going over some of the red and the white to make these wrinkles. All right, and then there's this one wrinkle that goes all the way through. Now the thing about, look how nice that's starting to look. It looks terrible looking at it like this. I want you to know, I think, oh my goodness, what am I doing? But that's how I know it's going to be okay, because far away is where it's going to really pop. So I'm going to come in and add a little bit of that. Now again, that's really dark. So I'm wiping off my brush. I'm going to just literally suck some of that up right in there. There's this beautiful white one right here that needs some. Now, let's look at some red that is actually in shadow. So it needs some of this. Notice how watered down that is. And now I'm going to come in on this right here and add basically inside where I think, notice the shape right here. There's a shape of darkness. And I'm putting that on the white, the black, red, and literally coming in and making it move for me. And putting it right in there. And you're starting to really see, now that was really harsh, so I'm going to just pull some of that back. Okay, nice. All right, so now what I'm going to do is come in and there's some little black things in here. So I'm going to come in with a little bit right here, a little bit right in here, right there. And this whole area here is actually darker, right? And up here in this little area. And this actually has that. So when you're painting white or a flag that's actually blowing in the wind, do you see how you can't think of this as a flag? You have to think of it as shapes. And that's the whole point of this lesson, is to actually see that it is not about the stripes and not about, it's about the lights and shadows and how you actually focus on that to actually get it to move. Now, I still want to add a little bit more red. So I am playing with all kinds of these reds that we have here in this palette. And in places, I want more orangey red. So I'm going to go get that red that we started with, and I'm going to add a little bit of orange to it. And I'm going to come in and go, okay, that's a beautiful red highlight. That's a beautiful red highlight. This one here has a beautiful red highlight. Right in here, there's a few of these dots. Okay, notice I'm going a little bit faster, and I know people just love to pause me, and that's okay, you can do that. But you got to go pretty fast on some of these, or you don't get those beautiful colors that you need. Which, let's talk about that a little bit. So if we're dealing with white and we don't have this little spot right here, which we know is red, guess what? We're going to extend this red just like that to make it look like it's there. Okay. Nice. All right. And now I'm going to go back to, notice I keep going back and forth. The key here is that you've got to be able, that's nice. That was really pretty. All right. To come in and add. So again, I'm coming back in here, adding some more dark, adding a little bit of dark right there. I'm being very, what's the word? Almost too much. I'm kind of coming in, and because it's transparent, I can come in and go over a whole bunch of it. And you see how I just went down all of that. Same thing here. All right, I'm going to come in right there. I feel like there's a little bit right here. So that white is really not white at all, is it? It's kind of a gray, and it actually has a lot of different colors in it. It even can be pink sometimes because it will reflect what is actually it's next to. All right, we're looking pretty good here. Now the question is what are we going to do with the rest of this? I would probably take, because I mean, I have to do my pen work. So I probably will. I'll probably pause it and let it dry though. All right, but one of the things that I want to do is I want to do splatter. So how do you do splatter? And what do we do about this little spot here? Well, it does need to be blue. So I'm going to just get some water here, and I'm going to see if I can't drag some of that in there. Now, if that's not good, or your paper's not good enough to do that, one of the things to do is to make a little bit darker everywhere around that, and then come in with your brush and wipe it off. So this would be called subtractive, right? Because we are subtracting paint. And I'm going to do that right in here a little bit to make it look like it's moving. And do you see how this line right here is really, really sharp and important? And then this line was really sharp and important. And it kind of fades right in here though. That's all right. Okay, so how would we do splatter? So I personally like to do splatter with a harder brush. Let's see if I have a harder brush in here. Sometimes I have a hard brush, which I don't have with me. So I'm going to take this right here. This is my mop. I'm going to take it and I'm going to start with some red. Okay, so I have some red right here. Very wet on my brush. And one of the things I'm going to do, because I don't want it really on that, is I'm going to take this and kind of put it right here. Okay. And also, I probably am going to get this everywhere. So I have a very wet brush. Look at how wet that is. Y'all see that? Kind of. Okay. And what I'm going to do is use my finger and flick. And I'm pointing it down. All right, I'm pointing it down. It kind of goes everywhere. And it never goes where you want it to go. So, all right, literally, it never goes where you want it to go. So there's the red. Now I'm going to take that blue that I like. Okay. And this time, I'm going to go really close to it. All right, and do you see how the closer you are, the bigger they can be. Now, let's say you've done this. We're going to take this off, okay? Now, watch this. I'm going to wipe that off on my brush, and I'm going to go get my small brush again, only with water this time, and I'm going to put extra water on some of these to make them bigger. I'm only picking a few. You don't have to pick each one. The key is that you could come in and you can fake a dot. So like I want a big dot right there. So I'm just pulling and putting some more red where I kind of want it. especially if I want some big ones. Back to some little ones. You could come in and you can add even more dots. All right, now I'm liking that. That's working for me. Okay, so I'm going to pause this and I'm going to come back and I'm going to actually come back and show you how to do the other stuff. Okay, so this is a perfect example that I'm drawing this, but these splatters are still wet. So I'm going to take my paper towel and go straight down. Now that's red, so I'm going to move it and do it to the blue. I'm going to go to the blue. Okay, this one's a blue. Okay, so now I'm going to come in and do the red. You want it to be clean every time you stamp it, because what happens is that then it'll make a purple dot, and you don't want a purple dot. You want red, white, and blue. Okay, so that's pretty good. All right, so next what we're going to do is we're moving on, and we are going to come in and we're going to do the famous pen work. Okay, so I have my Uniball Signo 207 bold pen here. It is my favorite pen. It has got quite a big bold tip. And one of the things that I'm going to do is I am going to come in here and be really sketchy. All right, and you're like, still there's no stars, lady. I know, we'll get there. Now notice, I'm very sketchy. And one of the things that I'm doing is I'm really, what's the word here? Being very sketcherly, not a lot of big lines. I hope you all didn't hear that. I just hit the microphone. Okay, and I'm going to come in and I'm going to really look at these areas where it's dark. I'm going to have darker lines, okay? And then where it's lighter, I'm going to have lighter lines. So notice right here, I'm leaving this area here blank. So we're going to have dark. We're going to just come in and slightly add it here. Okay. And it gets a little bit of a dip right in there. So now I have, and I'm going to go ahead and add that line because, you know, there's always a rope, right? Okay, so I am really kind of liking what I've got here. This is a little confusing, but I don't know if I want to add too much attention to it because I don't want you to feel like, ugh. So in some of these, I'm going to add even more darkness, but I'm going to go in the direction of the dark. So like this one's going this way, so I kind of angle my brush that way. Now over here we have, I'm going to come in and add a little bit to this white. I'm even going to add a little bit of this darkness in here. All right, now you're like, still no stars. Where's the stars? I have got to tell you, I love stars. I'm going to go ahead and add some curly cues because, well, that's just my thing. All right. All right. And now this is a fine liner, and you can find it in my About section under Favorite Supplies. So you can buy them on Amazon. I do have a link to them in my favorite supplies. It just has craft paint in it. And you know how I said you didn't have to count 50 stars? You don't. Now, I'm probably going to. One of the things I like to do is go, the stars are dots here because you, hello. There we go. You kind of have to go with the fact that it's going all over the place. Now, some of y'all are going to want to count each one. I am not that person. So I just add them. And do you see how I add them even in that white spot and how all of a sudden it's glossy? So I'm even going to take some of this, and where I really want some white, I'm going to come in and add a little bit of white in here. Okay, so now that I've added this white in here, I'm going to take my finger and just mess it up a little bit. Even if it gets on the red, that's okay with me. And now it just makes everything more glossy. And that's as simple as it gets. You know what? If you wanted to, you could come in here to some of these big ones or add your own white ones. Okay, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you do an actual, what do you call it, flag. And of course, I sign my work. Okay, so I hope you have enjoyed this lesson. And I promise it's actually more red in person. It's terrible lighting in here. I hope to be at my new place soon. So hopefully you'll see better background and things. But other than that, I hope you have a good 4th of July. And I will talk to you next week.